Welcome to Beyond the Bubble podcast, featuring monthly talks and updates on Viking men's basketball, where they're at and what they're up to.
All right, back here with Beyond the Bubble. I'm not even sure what episode this is. We'll put it on there. What's that? We'll just put it on there when we have a chance. But we're lucky enough to have Cory Anderson, the Executive Director of University Advancement at Valley City State University, with us today. Cory, thanks for being here. Hopefully we get into a lot of stuff, but I'm going to be really big into the stories right now because just sitting down and talking with you in general, I start hearing a lot of things, and I'm always interested in these stories, and you have a lot of them to talk about for Valley City State University, and I really appreciate you coming here. But let's kind of get right into it. 1989 graduate. Do you want to talk a little bit about your time as a student here?
It was awesome.
Yeah.
I came in 1984. Why Valley City State? I had some choices coming out of high school. Surprisingly, I got recruited probably more to be a basketball player than football or baseball.
You have told me that.
And I made a really good decision to not choose basketball. But Coach Dew, things were different back then. We had this guy at our games officiating, and I'd be back in punt formation, and he'd be recruiting me to go to Valley City.
Okay.
I mean, in those days, he was out. That was part of his recruiting, is he'd officiate and go to games, and then he'd see guys up close and personal, and he'd start recruiting during games.
So Coach Dew was an official.
Coach Dew was an official.
I've never really thought of that.
He had his own crew in football.
Okay.
And then he did a lot of basketball.
Okay.
And so it kind of started there. I had older teammates from the high school I'd went to that had came here to go to school and play ball, and most of the teachers in Mackville High School were Valley City State grads. So I had that all the time. It was kind of present or in the background.
I'm trying to think of this situation in my head where you're sitting there looking and waiting for a punt kick to get to you, and you have this guy, this official off to your right or left, and speaking to you about going to Valley City State University. The pressure that would be in regards to receiving the punt and then actually doing something with it after. And
well, so most of the time, just to clarify, I was in punt formation, meaning I was punting.
Oh, you were punting.
Yeah, I was
I'm
punting.
Sorry.
And no, it's fine. And, he and all the coaches we played against were former players of his.
Okay.
So you just got it from all ends. And Pete Hughes, who's in our Hall of Fame, was the head coach at Findlay, Sharon High School in those days. And we had a pretty good football team. And then we would play some baseball down here. So we just, we were in front of him a lot. And so it just kind of, that's how it matriculated to VCSU.
Every time I hear about Coach Dew, I feel like he just had a monopoly of things for his recruiting and all that stuff. And that's something I would not think of as officiating as a college coach.
Yeah.
And I'm not even sure if that's allowed. I don't know the rules anymore, but I'm like, yeah, that would be kind of an advantage.
Oh, for sure.
Free recruiting, get paid to recruit, all those types of things in terms of outside of the university. And
he remembered Tyler Schlecht, who is another All-American in football and baseball in our Hall of Fame. He talks about how he remembered him as a ball boy in Enderlin way back in the days.
Wow.
And he's just like, that kid's really good. And he just kept his eye on him. And
there it goes, right?
There, again, he ended up at VCSU. So, yeah, different time.
I always wonder if Coach Dew's ever spent any time in the office. That's what I always wonder. I was like, because every time I hear it, he was always out someplace doing something.
Yeah, he spent time in the office because one year I ended up breaking a wrist, took a fastball towards my face and put my arm up and ended up breaking my wrist.
Ooh.
And he didn't believe it was broken. And we went in and got x-rays here in Valley City, and I came back to the bubble, and I had this cast on. And I asked Dr. Govin if it was okay if I took the x-rays with me, because I said, Coach, won't believe that it's broke, because it happened on our spring trip, and I ended up getting one day off, and then I played the last day, and somehow that pitcher hit my bat a couple times, so I got a couple hits, and so he didn't believe it was broke. So I came down and went to the office, had the x-rays, and he looked at them, and he opened up his desk drawer, pulled out a saw.
Oh, no.
He's like, "You can still pitch," because it was my left hand. So cut my cast off in the office as he had Red River Valley Sports Medicine on the line, and he said, "I'm sending down one of my players, and we need an aqua cast put on his wrist, so you could fit my glove into it."
Right.
So that day I went to Fargo, and they formed my wrist, took my glove with so they could form it to my glove, and
Really?
yeah.
I don't know what's more disturbing about that story. The fact that you had something sawed off of your arm by your coach, or the fact that he actually had a saw in his desk.
Yeah. Or the fact that I let him do it. But
see, like, this is what I was talking about at the beginning here. I'm like, every time I sit down with you or in general and talk, and there's another story that I'm like, and this is the stuff that, like, I want all this podcast to be really about, is just these stories from people that have come to Valley City State or been a part of Valley City State in some way, and just hear the evolution of people that attended here or have worked here or have had some affiliation. And it's just amazing to me, some of these stories that I hear. Stuff that I, like, nowadays, that if that happened, Cory, like, if I was to pull out a saw and saw something off of one of my players' legs, I wouldn't be here very much longer. But that's interesting stuff.
It is, and it was just what we did back in the day, so to speak. So you talk about rubbing gravel on it. Well, that was kind of
that's the way it was done.
We went down and we just continued from there, and that was a good year. That was a conference championship year, and so it's just interesting how we get to where we get to, and and he didn't even pause with the whole thing. I mean, he was like, "Okay, you can still pitch. We're gonna fix this." So,
so you came here, you played football and basketball, or football and baseball.
Correct.
Sorry.
Correct.
And so all 4 years, both sports.
Yeah. So actually, in football, I played 5 years.
Okay.
This was really a tipping point, probably, because I wasn't going into coaching.
Okay.
And my third year in football, Coach Dew pulled me in and said, we had a quarterback named Darren Lowe who went on to also be an All-American, got drafted by the Mariners in baseball. Just a really good athlete, very good Viking. And he said, he was a year younger than me. And he goes, I really, Darren's going to be the guy, but we always need to have two guys. And so I'd like to have you redshirt this year, but I'd like to have you be up in the booth and be my spotter, being an assistant for us, and you can practice. So I did practice, went through everything that way, but spent the year coaching, and kind of my first taste of being upstairs and seeing the game from that level. And he always wanted me to go into coaching, and I said no, I wasn't going to do that. And so this was his way of kind of planting that seed and maneuvering it that way.
Another Dew trick.
Yeah, it was, and I didn't know what he was doing to me, but figured that out later. And so that was really a game changer in terms of seeing it from that perspective. I sat in on meetings. I got to do all that as a junior in college. And so then I had my last 2 years, and Darren stayed healthy. We had a national playoff run in there, and I did some other things. Was a holder, was a kicker, was a punter. Just did some things. Worked with Coach Dew and Darren, and he allowed us to come in and do a lot of the things in terms of putting the offense together, and so just a beneficial time.
Yeah.
And then Baseball was 4 years, but then my 5th year, we were on the quarter system back then.
Okay.
So that spring, I was really done with school, but I stayed and did student coaching
Oh.
in the spring of '89. And then that summer, I'm looking for jobs, and again, I'm not looking at staying in education, and I'm looking for other jobs. And we had a transformation in the basketball department. Our head basketball coach left, and Monty Johnson, who had been a longtime assistant and was the director of admissions, they moved him into the head basketball position.
Okay.
And at that time, we lost everybody else on the admissions staff as well.
Wow.
And so I got a phone call. It said, hey, we'd like to have you apply to be an admissions counselor. And so I applied, came down, interviewed, got the job. So it was 3 rookies right out of college. Myself, Jim Mikowski, who became the head wrestling coach. He's now the wrestling coach at Mankato State. He's been there for 20 years.
I was trying to put that together in my head because I follow him on Twitter a little bit
Yeah.
and stuff. And
Yeah.
I know him and Hoffner are
Yes.
both VCSU
Yes.
alums, right?
Yep, we were all in the same class.
Oh, I didn't know that part of it.
Yeah.
And so, okay, so that's pretty cool for me to kind of put together.
Yeah, and so Jim and I, and then another one of our classmates named Christy Winkles, who was a volleyball player and has got a daughter who plays at Dakota Wesleyan right now. We were the admission staff, and
Wow.
and so that's how it started.
The war room.
Yeah, and I didn't coach that year. I actually, to kind of scratch my itch for athletics, I got into umping college baseball.
Okay.
And my partner at that time was Dan Jeanette, who was a graduate, a teammate of mine. He went on to spend 6 years, got as far as AAA. It was at least 12 years in Major League Baseball. A guy, you talk about guys got great stories and brushes with Hall of Famers.
He's got 'em.
Ted Williams. Like, he's a guy that I need to get you connected with.
Ted Williams.
Yeah, because he'd go work spring training, and he's got many stories with major leaguers, former.
Wow.
It's really good. Dan needs to write a book. But
Okay.
so started doing umpiring and did that for a bit, and then Coach Stu got me onto the staff
There he
as
is again.
his assistant. And then he said, hey, I think it's time for you to take over the program, and we're going to turn the reins of the baseball program over. And then I started coaching football as well, and spent 3 years as an assistant for him on the defensive side.
Okay.
And then when he stepped down, and Coach Mack and Coach Horner came in as assistant coaches to Steve LeGrand. Steve was our
Okay.
head coach.
Okay.
Then I went back over to be the offensive coordinator and did that until 2007, along with baseball.
Well, that just opened my eyes a lot because I never knew that you were coaching football here before Coach Mack and Coach Horner.
3 years before.
Like that, you can hold that over them a little bit.
No,
Okay.
not at all. Not at all.
Because I thought you were I thought you were there at the same time
Yeah.
they were as assistants. I thought you
Yeah.
came in at the same time,
Yeah.
but you were actually here 3 years prior to
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Okay, so you were a true Coach Do guy.
Yeah, that tree. And I think that's probably another story for another time. But
Yeah.
in that era, when I talked about Todd Hoffner,
Yeah.
head coach at Mankato, and Jim McCoskey, head coach wrestling at Mankato, and Darren Lowe, head coach at Northwest Missouri State, and Steve Olson, who's back
with
here,
us,
right? Head coach at
Michigan Tech.
Michigan Tech D2.
Yep.
We had Mark Duffner, who is that era head coach at UMC Crookston. Shannon Stassen, head coach at UMC Crookston. We had the old Southwest State basketball coaches. One of ours was from that era.
Which one was that?
Greg Steeman.
Steeman, yes.
Yep.
I'm sorry. I knew that right off the bat.
And what was really amazing is I think we had from that era and that team, I think we had 10 to 11 Division II head coaches at one point in time.
Wow. And that was all kind of your class?
That
Wow.
was that class. Like, it's amazing.
Yeah.
And I don't think people understand like that. People talk about coaching trees. that branch of Coach Dew's tree was really fruitful.
Wow. Now,
It was really amazing.
did they all play under Coach Dew, or did they?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
'Cause Steeman, was he a basketball?
Steeman was a basketball guy, so
Okay.
so he was probably the one outlier.
Okay.
But the rest of them were either baseball or football or baseball and football.
Okay. He probably still had some influence over
Oh,
Steeman in
yeah.
some way.
Yeah.
Just talking with you, that how
Yeah.
did he not?
Yeah, well, he taught all the officiating classes, and he
yeah.
taught a lot of the coaching classes. So,
Okay.
I mean, yeah, Greg would have been involved with him in some way, shape, or form.
I mean, just to hear about all those names and everything, just it's starting to connect dots in my
Yeah.
head, and hopefully it connects it for other people too, of like how cool of an era that was for
Yeah.
Valley City State
Yeah.
University, and just those names around the Midwest is a big deal.
Yeah.
Let's go back. Now, you also had a stint, outside of coaching at Valley City State, but you became the NSAA commissioner.
Yeah.
At what time? What year was that?
2013. It was the inaugural year
Of the NSAA.
Yeah. So, I came in to school here. We were the NDCAC, so
Yep.
the North Dakota College Athletic Conference. And then we morphed into the DAC 10,
Mhm.
Dakota Athletic Conference, and 10 members. And then when we lost some members, we became the DAC, and then we became independent
Mm-hmm.
for a few years. And then in 2013, it was the start of a new conference, and had the opportunity to apply to be the commissioner
Mm-hmm.
of that league, and did that for 7 years. And I'll as much as I love being here,
Mm-hmm.
and I feel a greater purpose here, I'll probably never have a better job than that job as commissioner.
Really?
I just it was a great job. The opportunity to work with people on different campuses and see different things, and I think it just broadened my scope in terms of all I knew was Valley City State.
Mm-hmm.
And now I got to know a lot about, 7 to 8 to 9 other universities,
Mhm.
because we were at a high water mark in there of 10 schools at one point in time.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was a lot of fun, and to work with the national office, and if you're a sports guy, that's awesome work.
Mm-hmm. What was the biggest struggle as a conference commissioner? What was the the hardest thing to get accomplished, or was a daily thing for you?
Well, I think initially it was understanding that we had such a huge footprint.
Okay.
And it was so important, I think, at that time for me to believe that we need to get together and we need to be unified. Like the strength of the herd will determine, how well we do as a conference. And,
Sure.
and as coaches, we have one-dimensional view. It's our program. We're wrapped up in it, right?
You're speaking to the choir right now.
Yeah. And then as an AD, you got to have everybody's program in mind
Yeah.
at your unit. So you have more of a two-dimensional view. And I always tell people, when you're a commissioner, it's a three-dimensional view. I'm going to listen to you, Ryan, and problems with your program, but I got to be concerned about everybody else's program and every other school too, and that we need to raise our profile as a conference,
Mm-hmm.
and how you can be part of that is going to be important.
Mhm.
We can't just have one bell cow, and take care of that school or that program. We've got to raise everybody else's profile.
And how important, this might be a rhetorical, I'm not sure, question, but, when you say you want every school, you got to care about every school to build the conference, how important is that to the NAI office, like in terms of when they view the North Star? Like, what are they trying to view? Like, what are they looking at a certain sport? Are they looking at us as a whole for every sport? Like, what are they doing in regards to that?
Unpopular take,
Okay.
and that I'm transparent, right?
Yeah.
And so I can say this: in the NAI you have autonomy, and by
Okay.
autonomy it means like you need to take care of yourself,
Sure.
and the NAI is going to let you do that,
Okay.
and they're not going to really interfere. They're
Mhm.
not probably going to step up and help.
Mm-hmm.
It is the programs that are in the NAI run the NAI,
Okay.
and it's not They're a governing body
Yep.
that provides many opportunities. They're in it for, I believe, the right reasons. But strategically, they're not going to plan things out and help conferences necessarily.
Right. Okay.
So you're on your own.
Okay.
You're a little bit, each of the 23, 21 conferences is an island.
Okay.
You need to take care of yourself.
Sure.
If at some point in time you're looking to them, you need them to help you
Yeah.
because you're struggling with, this or that, it's probably not going to happen.
Okay. They, I have never been in a big time conversation or a big time meeting with the NEI. So I don't know. So that's why I asked the question is like, I hear things and like, you always compare NCAA with NAIA, and I was at an NCAA institution, and there's a lot of different things in between those things. So just getting it from a guy that probably sat in all those meetings or was on those phone calls a lot, getting to know how they view certain things or how they go about things, it really helps. Because then when we're sitting there and talking about what we should do as a conference, like let's just say my basketball coaches got together and we do those things. I was the chair for it the last 2 years, and just understanding like when we're going over, well, we should do this versus this. Well, what is the NEI going to view that as? Like, is this going to be good for our conference or not? And if we think it's going to be like we're relying on the NEI to help us out in any situation, that'll be really good information to know that probably not going to happen. And you got to take care of yourself, like you're saying. And just judging by my experience over the last 7 seasons, about comparing our conference with the GPAC or the Frontier or Chicagoland or any of those things, we have to start looking out for each other as a group more than branching out. The best way to describe it. So, but I'm glad to hear that you had a really good experience doing that.
To leave that position to come here tells you how much I
care
value
about here.
VCSU, because literally it when the opportunity came up, it was a lot of thought-provoking time.
Sure.
And when you leave probably the best job you're ever going to have, or that you love and that every day is great, it's got to be for something that has a greater purpose, and that's why we made the move.
Well, and you made a move to, like, how would I say this? You moved from a high-pressure job, again, the commissioner of a conference. There's a lot of people probably coming to you on a daily basis with their problems. And, well, then you have to manage the budgets, make sure the conference is maintaining money and doing all those things. And I'm not sure how much of a staff you even had.
You're looking at it.
Yeah, right? I mean, I can't imagine, like, being responsible for all those things and not even having somebody to help you out with that. And then you kind of make the move to executive director of university advancement, which is not an easy job here at Valley City State either, because that's another high-pressure financial deal. And I want to talk about that a little bit here in a second. But, your jobs, Cory, I don't know what your wife thinks about this, but your stress level's got to be a little bit higher than most, right?
Yeah, I think that... we always say sports prepare you in life and give you the discipline, and you think about the number of times that you've been through a pressure situation, and you're going to have those times in a job as well. And when you need to be at your best, and your best is what's required, what do you fall back on? And, I look at 2 things. Are you in a good place mentally? And are you prepared? And so I think those are the 2 things that I really try to focus on, no matter what the job is and what's coming up. And probably some over-preparing, but a lot of time spent on thought and planning and strategies and preparing to fail. I think we have to prepare to fail, because failure is going to happen at some point in time, and how long you're mired in that and how fast you get out of it is really important. And, I think that we were prepared for all those things as we went through just the nature of all the jobs that I've had. And I think that, it's definitely a journey, and that you take something from everything that you get. And as a commissioner, yeah, your phone rang all the time.
Yeah,
Right?
hopefully it wasn't me.
Yeah, no, and a lot of times it was because people are passionate, and it was trying to, they were interested. If it wouldn't have rang, then nobody would have cared, right? And so that's an important thing. So it rang all the time, and then you go into fundraising, and your phone never rings,
No,
right?
you got to go call them.
And I can't say that's honestly the truth.
Yeah.
I think that we have got a very passionate base here, and we have a lot of people that reach out and
Sure.
will say, hey, let's talk, let's do this. Or they're very intrigued about what's next, what's going on, how can I help?
Cool. So let's go back to your transition. You're coming to Valley City State as the new director of university advancement, and what you talked about planning. What was your plan when you came here for the foundation, basically?
Right.
Alumni relations, all that stuff. What is the plan?
Yeah,
In regards to that.
And so to back up a step, when Valley City reached out and said, hey, Larry Robinson's been here as the director of university advancement, and it's been 30-some years, and
Yeah.
and we would like to go through a transition program where you're going to come in, and I actually came in a development position, and kind of got the lay of the land and understood how things were going and everything, and all of the moving parts, because there's a ton of moving parts with how everything works, and then that to transition into that director role. The thing that we had in front of us is we're going into a capital campaign at that time for the first time ever, and then all of a sudden a pandemic hits. So you talk about preparing
We're
for
talking
failure.
about that stress again, man.
And so we have so many needs, and we look at our athletic department, and we look at 1960 when the field house was built. It was a modern marvel. People couldn't believe it. And I talk to people all the time. They're like, I remember being there. Like, we played in the first games there, and we did this and we did, and that was an amazing structure. And still to this day, people look at the architecture of it and go, wow.
Well, the podcast is kind of named after
Yeah,
the bubble.
yeah,
And
yeah.
it's cool.
And, the guy that pounded all the big spike nails into that arched roof he's still here in Valley City. And,
I did not know
that's
that.
some guy that named Woody Went.
Woody went.
And he could tell you a lot about the bubble.
Really?
And he was part of that building of that particular structure. But to go back to it, and we're like, okay, we feel like we have great programs. We need the facilities requisite of the programs that we have. And so that was going to become part of the structure of what we did going forward. And, my whole time here in my first stint, we never had a new building.
Really? Nothing new?
Nothing new.
Wow.
So that science center that we're in right now,
The roads.
the Rhodes Science Center, was the last new building that we had on campus until they added on to this building and redid it in 2013.
Yeah.
I think that was.
I think you're right.
Yeah, so we went all those years, 40-some years without a new building. NDSU and UND get a new building every couple months.
Yeah.
And so now, things are different. We have had to, I think that our universities went from, I always kind of been one that was maybe thought about, well, we need to reduce the size of universities, and we have too many in North Dakota, and I believe in the last 5 years what we've done is we've made ourselves relevant. Like, we are, what I would consider the top regional university in this area, and we have made ourselves relevant. And I think any talk of things like that about reducing universities and getting rid of them, we're not even going to come to that table anymore.
That's great. And, I mean, that stability like that, obviously as an employee, it makes it feel really, really good.
Yeah.
But as a student, if you're recruiting and you're looking at schools, like, you want to go someplace that has a lot of tradition, a lot of pride in it, and honestly, a campus life. You don't want to go well, in my opinion, there's two different types of students now. They want the old school, traditional college life, right?
Mhm.
And then there's the new age where you're still, I'm not saying everybody's like this, but they have that new stay-at-home type learning. And we provide both.
Mhm.
It's just, it's really good to hear that we still have a campus life to us.
Yes.
I think that's going to be huge. And honestly, I'm a big believer of circles in terms of everything goes around in a circle. And I feel like the old school or the old traditional way of going to college is coming back. I think it'll still have a little tweaks here and there, but new campus lives are going to start to make its way back because it's inevitable. It's just like fashion. Like
Yeah.
it's going to start doing those things again. So
Yeah, I think that we had our foray into everybody getting to do this distance learning
yeah,
because it was the only thing that we had that we could do.
it was forced.
Right.
Yeah.
And so then you're going to have your people that go, well, I'm glad I got to do that because I never want to do that again.
Mm-hmm.
Or you had people that said, that wasn't so bad. I think I maybe could do that. And
Yep.
so, I think that's defined the future and the direction that we're going. And just like everything else, sometimes people want big universities, sometimes they want small ones, sometimes they want distance learning, sometimes they want face-to-face. I mean, we need to be able to provide
Both.
those things and survive and do what's right and remember all the time when things get tough, who are we doing this for
Mm-hmm.
and what's our why?
Yep.
And anytime stress comes in, that's also another thing.
Mm.
I think you just got to back up and go to who are we doing it for and what's our why?
Mm-hmm.
Why are we doing this?
Yeah.
And sometimes we get a little mixed up
Mm-hmm.
in who it's being done for.
Okay. I would agree. There's a lot of time, even in coaching, like, why you got to know your why. Like, are you doing it for the kids? Or are you doing it for yourself? Are you doing it for your family? Or are you doing it for the kids? You're constantly juggling those things. And I spoke to a business class here yesterday, and we talked about leadership and all those things. And I says the best leaders in the world are the best leaders that lead by servanthood. They're serving their teams. They're not ones that are just looking out for you're a tool. Like you're a tool to make my program better. No, it's how can the program make. How is it for you, for your students and your players? That's always a constant battle, like, because I think sometimes us coaches get a little egotistical and we start to get selfish.
Yep.
Best way to describe it. And I think that's just human nature in general.
It is.
And you got to fight that every day.
Yeah.
So, but that's good stuff, Cory. The foundation office. I'm sorry. It is the foundation office, right? I'm correct. I have it actually. I pulled it up on my screen here, and we'll go over that in a little bit. But what things are going on in your foundation right now in terms of what I know the capital campaign is really big, and we can talk about that a little bit here. Is there anything outside of that right now that's going on?
Yeah, there's a lot of things. So kind of how we look at our view from the foundation office is we've got 3 buckets that we look at filling in right now, and it's the capital campaign bucket.
Mm-hmm.
And part of that bucket is the School of Education, and we're really nearing a point where I think in January we're going to start, it's a 12-month process, and hopefully in January things go out for bid on that, and then in March we're going to it's not put a shovel in the ground, figuratively, but we will start the remodel hopefully in March. That's a 12-month process to get that. It's the number 1 program that we have. In by some people, it's reported as the number 1 in the nation in elementary education. And so, again, having the facility requisite of the people that work in it and the people that are produced from it is really, really important.
Yeah.
And then the other part of that is the Osmond Fieldhouse and the additions there that again shortly thereafter, we feel like okay, this is our time now. We're in the 4th quarter of this, that we can also start doing the shovel in the ground on that one and start moving towards where we need to be there. And so that's one bucket. Then we have our annual fund every year.
Okay.
The annual fund is what, provides the scholarships.
Yep.
For
No,
your
is that separate than Century Club?
no. The
No,
Century
that's
Club would be under the annual fund bucket.
umbrella.
So,
Okay.
a merit-based scholarship, talent-based scholarship, endowed scholarship, all those things in that annual fund. And so that's something that every year we're looking at, trying to do $500,000 to $600,000
Mm-hmm.
every year just to keep us where we need to be.
Mm-hmm.
And then the third bucket is what we call the North Dakota Challenge Grant bucket.
Okay, that's new to me. I don't know that one.
Yeah, well, it's been around since 2013.
Okay.
And so since 2013, that has been something that we have raised $11 million for.
Wow. That's a lot of money.
It is a lot of money. Now, part of that is it's a 50% match from the state.
Okay.
And so if we raise, for instance, $1 million, the state will match it with $500,000.
Okay.
And so we just came off the largest one that we've ever had in the previous biennium, where we needed to raise $1.4 million to get $700,000 in match money from the state.
Okay.
This next one, they raised it.
Oh.
And so we need to raise $2 million to get $1 million.
I do remember you talking to me about this,
Yep.
or somebody talking
Yep.
to me about this. Yeah.
By the end of December of 2024.
Okay, so a year and a half, basically.
Yes. So, as you can imagine, that's a lot of money.
Yeah.
And so we have a lot of different projects that are requiring a lot of different money.
Mm-hmm.
And trying to balance that. And when we have people and there's a couple things that we look at is, do people have an affinity for VCSU?
Mm-hmm.
Almost along, yes. I mean, there's tons of people who have great affinity for VCSU. Now we have to match that affinity with their capacity.
Okay.
What is their capacity, and can they assist us in the process of what we're doing?
Sure.
These don't have to be an alumni. They can be friends of the university. In many cases, we have many people like that. But it's constantly, being present and looking for those types of things, matching the affinity with the capacity, and seeing where we can go from there and how that will help move our university forward and give us the things that we need. The state, did step in with the McCarthy project.
Yeah, that was huge.
Yes, and we wouldn't be able to do that project without them.
Okay.
But we also provide a huge resource to them. I mean, we provide more teachers a year than
I was
any
just
other
going to
place.
say, like, in terms of what we provide for education,
correct.
higher and lower education
Correct.
in North Dakota in general is
Yep.
immense.
Yeah, and so, it's overwhelming, and what I hope people realize is that you don't have to be a millionaire to make a difference.
Okay.
Like, when you start stacking small gifts, it starts making a difference.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I think that's the nature of where we're trying to go also. We have to have different size groups of different size givers, and it's the combination of all those things that gets us to where we need to be.
Yeah, and I'm just thinking about what you said. It doesn't have to be a large gift. That the thing that brought up into my head is that generational change. Like, there's probably a lot of people in our community. Well, I know there's a lot of people in our community that have been giving for 20 plus years, right? And eventually, things happen where we need the next generation to come in behind them and start taking over.
Yes.
For what they've already done. And that's always a constant thing. And I'm starting to see, certain people, I'm not dating myself, but I'm getting older, right? And I'm starting to see people my age that are starting to have to take the torch. And I feel like it's a constant job for your office, and a person like me who's a coach and all that stuff. We have to continually find those people that you said have an affinity for VCSU, and then try to make sure that we are, how would I say this, appreciative, but yet also kind of like reaching out and saying, hey, here, let's take the next step.
Yeah.
And kind of going from there, and how important it is for our university, for the community. I was just reading something of like how important just the Barnes County Valley City State is, the amount of money that it generates and kind of makes things go.
The economic impact study that comes out every year, the most recent one, Valley City State's economic impact on the community of Valley City was $114 million.
Yeah, I can't imagine if you took that money away from this community. I'm not saying it would go under because there's a lot of resilient people around here, all those things. But man, that's a lot. That's a big chunk.
Yeah. And you know, I tell this story a lot because it is important in my job, but it's truthful, and it's the power of when you start as well. So I came to VCSU in 1984, and I got a V500 scholarship, an academic scholarship at that time.
Okay.
1984. In 1989, I started working at the university, and I'm going to tell you, it was a 9-month contract. My contract was $12,000. That was my starting contract.
Okay.
Very first week I'm on the job, Dr. McCarrier, who was in our athletic department, and I had taken some classes from and things like that. She was on the V500 board. She came into my office, sat down, and said, "Okay, Cory, you're employed here now. You have a job. You received a V500. We're going to start you. We need you to be a member of the V500."
Okay.
And so I'm okay, and I didn't really know a whole lot about it other than I knew I'd received one. And she said, "It's really easy. It's $5.12 a month." I'll never forget that was the start of it. And then it just continued to be and continued to be and continued to be. And, you know, over time, all of a sudden now you get to the point where, okay, we've donated a lot of money. And so we just need to get people to start.
Yep.
And it can be humble like that. We just need to start. And, you know, I'm going to be the first one. You know, we need to do a better job with you know, I think all of our student athletes. Yes, they had the talent. They deserve the scholarships that they get. But I think they also have a pride in being a member of Valley City State and being a Viking.
Yep.
And so let's get them started at some even simple level of, you know, it's a subscription society now. Let's give up a coffee. Let's give up a coffee a month or a coffee a week, and let's put that back into your alma mater. Because we want to be a place that you're proud of. But it you know, let's be real. It takes some investment for that to happen.
Yep, it does.
And it could be time, it could be talent, it can be money.
Yeah.
All those things are important.
Yeah, and you're talking about after their time at Valley City State.
Yes.
You know, we need those, the Army, I would call them, the Viking Army, outside of the players, the current rosters, to continue being a part of it, continue to invest in what gave them so much. And then honestly, I do think you find a sense of pride when you start giving like you're doing. You'll follow it more. You'll be invested more. You'll have fun. Like you'll look forward to the Viking football days. You'll look forward to the Viking basketball, women's basketball. You'll just have some more invested interest. It's just like when you invest in the stock market. You're like you follow the stocks, right?
And it does not have to be, as I said, it does not have to be money.
Could be time.
Referring a future Viking is a pretty significant contribution.
Yeah.
Because you think about what tuition and fees are. And if that person stays for 4 years, you're going to have an emotional attachment again with your alma mater, and you're going to watch them.
Yeah.
And we can't overplay how important that is in the impact of what you do as well. And so maybe it's an insignificant, in your mind, amount of money that you're donating, but then also if you add to that we're going to help, be on the lookout. And if you're an alum, if you're a friend, you're an extension of this university, and we want you to be on the lookout for us to how we can be better.
Yeah.
Who could benefit from the things that you benefited from? Like I said last week when we had the Summer Vikes on Central.
Which was a great event, by the way.
Yeah, when I go downtown, and I've been around for a long time, and I look at the business leaders and as community leaders, and I go Valley City grad, VCSU grad, VCSU, all these former Vikings that are down there in positions of leadership. And then we walk down to the bridge, and I watch all of those current students walk across, and I wonder to myself, who is the next community leader in this group? Somebody in this group, a bunch of you in this group are going to be the leaders downtown in the near future.
Right.
And when you think about that, wow, that's powerful.
Yeah, and it's cool to see.
Yes.
Like, I mean, the amount of satisfaction or just the pride that you get when you see those things. I was talking, like that class I was talking to yesterday. I never thought I would be. I'm a basketball guy, and academics, all that stuff, it's important, but you're still a basketball guy, right? And you kind of know what I'm talking about. And I never thought I would find any more joy in watching a kid go across the stage in commencement than in a conference title. Like, those two moments are equal to me now. I could say 10 years ago, conference title. I'd rather watch the conference title and all that stuff. But seeing those kids walk across that, I'm starting to see, like, how cool that actually is. And, when you're the guy walking across it, you're like, cool, give it to me. I shook the president's hand. But when you see the investment and the progression of them when they first got here to where they're going now, and then get in touch with them 5 years from now, that's really cool stuff.
Yeah, there's a difference between being a champion and being a winner.
Yeah. I like that. The CA one-liners, here we go.
And it's cool. And this podcast, Kelvin Kraft, okay, it was so cool to see Kelvin on here.
I was just thinking about him on my way here this morning.
Because his mom and dad, I mean, those are people that I looked up to when I started here, like Tim and Barb. I mean, those were people that, and then here it is, a second generation. And that's what's so cool about this university is the generational impact, and then the next generation of people. We have our Hall of Fame coming up, and we have Megan Jacob that's going in, and she asked me, hey, my husband's going in on the football team that's getting inducted. Is there any other husband and wife people that have ever been in the Hall of Fame? I'm like, yeah, actually, you guys are going to be the 24th.
Wow. I would not have guessed that number.
Yeah, 24. And then that's not taking into account parents and children. When we start looking at that, there's a few others. And there is only one husband and wife that are in as individuals.
Okay, who is that?
Scott Radloff.
Okay.
And Brenda Radloff.
Okay.
So Scott, baseball and football, he was drafted by the Reds, and Brenda was a phenomenal fast pitch softball player.
I was going to say Cressup, but I know Cressup is a different thing because he was inducted. Dave was inducted as a Coaches Hall of Fame.
And Terry's
a softball.
Softball and basketball.
Softball and basketball.
Yep.
So and that was 2 years ago or last year?
2 years ago.
So little shout out to some of our alum there.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was going to be my pick, but I know you were going to be like, no, that's there's a correction there. So.
Yeah, it's really cool to just the historical perspective. It's just awesome. I mean, that's why I love this place and just the connections with all the people. It's just it's charming.
Mm-hmm.
Is a great way, I think, to look at it.
Yeah, very cool. I wanted to talk about how much time we got left there, guys. 8 minutes. Okay, it goes quick, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Mitchell, do you want to share my screen here? So when we do this, but Cory, I got up your foundation office website here. And they have certain things that you can go out, ways to give. So you just click on these things, and it'll kind of direct you to where to go and stuff, right? Because I'm looking at Donate Online, the Capital Campaign, Endowed Scholarships, Gift of Life Insurance, Legacy Society.
That would be like estate planning. So people that maybe are planning in the future and saying, okay, when my wife and I are done, this portion of the estate's going to go to VCSU.
Sure. And then plan matching gifts, and then plan giving or after that.
Yeah.
So you can just click on it. I want to click on the Capital Campaign one because
Yeah.
It helps.
That's that selfishness
It's,
again.
it's that coaching selfishness that's going on together. But there's a wonderful video on here. Dr. Lefebvre's got some wonderful comments. Mac, our athletic director, scholarship enhancements. But it talks about McCarthy Hall on the bottom there too. And you got a bunch of links here. Read more about what's preparing tomorrow's teachers. So it talks about, receive $600,000 teacher preparation grant to address teacher shortage.
Yeah, the DPI grant.
Yeah, so there's a bunch of information on here that's going to be great. Kind of look at what McCarthy Hall will become. Jennifer Feist, am I saying that right?
Yep.
Okay, and she's the Barnes County
Economic Development.
Yeah, so she kind of talks about how important Valley City State's
Correct.
teacher program is, or education program is. The student center renovation, that looks really cool, by the way.
Yes.
For those is that where the old pool is right now?
Yes.
Isn't that like, I walk by that a lot and I'm like, I really want something to happen to this, and to kind of like look and see what the plan might be. I'm like, that's pretty cool.
It is, and I can't wait till we start that project, and this is why. That'll mean that our field house is done and operational. And
so that's after the field house.
Yeah, I think that's a natural progression with that. We'd love to do it all at one time.
Yeah.
I mean, if something happens one day and all of a sudden there it is, and we can do it all, and it's but we can't be a secret.
Mm-hmm.
We love our charm and we love our little niche and we love those types of things, and sometimes we need to just be out there and not be willing to be this nice little secret that's in North Dakota. I mean, we have so many. We have so many things to offer, and we need to announce ourselves with authority and be bold. And I'd have this thing with the ABCs, right? Aim high, be bold, change your best.
Mm-hmm. There's another CA one-liner,
and that's just. But it's important. It is. It's. We need to be present, and we need to be out there, and we need to not be so shy about what we do.
Right.
We do. And I'm part of this act like you've been there before generation, and I'm really working hard on to try and be more boastful.
I know it's hard, isn't it?
It is. It's just you don't want to hurt anybody else's feelings. You don't want to diminish anything else, but. You know what? We were in the NDCAC. We won more conference championships overall in all sports than any other member of the NDCAC, and that's big schools. Those schools way bigger than us.
Mm-hmm.
And that was a prideful, boastful thing that we could say.
Right.
And then when we went into the DAC-10, we still competed really, really well as one of the smaller members of that conference.
Right.
I mean, I think that we have the capacity to do those things. And we certainly have the right people in place. I'm really happy with the makeup of our university right now, and I think we have people that are all rowing in the right direction, and we're trying to move ourselves forward in new initiatives and just changing our best. I mean, we just can't rest on our laurels. We can't be happy with where we're at. What's next?
Right.
The minute you start getting happy, somebody passes you. and we need to be uncomfortable. Because growth comes from being uncomfortable. And Tony Dungy, I love being uncommon. Everyone is common.
Yep.
Be uncommon.
Yep.
And I think that we have that capacity, and we have the people that we can rely on to do that. And I'm at the field house. I'm really happy with everything out there and the direction and how everybody seems to be coordinated in their efforts. And man, we just got really good things happening. And when good things happen, people want to be part of it.
Right. I mean, I don't even need to say anymore. I think he said it all right there. I think we're running out of time, but I really appreciate you sitting down with me. We get this all looking good, make us look good, right, Mitchell? And yeah, you just keep doing what you're doing, CA. All right.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it.
Thanks for coming by.
Who are they really serving? I want big smoke, wolfing on the net, but up in person they got strep throat. Here to make a lot of threats, but they don't never step though. Yeah, I'm a believer, by my dollars feel like Creflo. They gon' say that I